Hey, good morning. My name is Brian Clark, and I'm the lead pastor here at Grace Life Church. Welcome back to the Grace Life Church podcast. Hope you're having an amazing week. And just excited about continuing to teach through some of what we've been looking at this week on the power of words. I'm believing this is really encouraging each and every one of you and bringing strength to you, bringing faith and help you walk in God's reality for your life. God's reality, his promises and his plans are beyond anything that any of us have probably fully walked in yet. That means there's more. And so this whole series is about helping you step into the more. And so we've been looking at the power of words. Real quick before we get into today's uh, lesson, I want to encourage you, if you're new to this channel, subscribe to whatever channel you're watching this on. We bring you fresh content every day, so it'll pop out to you right away at 10 o'clock every morning when it comes out. It's 10 to 12 minutes, so it's like super short. You can watch it on your coffee break, at work, and you'll get something insightful, impactful, and something. The goal is to really help you strengthen your faith, know God better, and then to walk in His plans and purposes for your life. And so, again, if you'll subscribe, that'll help us get you more content and help you. So, thank you for doing that. So, what we're going to look at today, yesterday we talked about how words paint a picture, and we're just going to do kind of part two of words painting a picture and about the words that we say and how they can paint a picture over our lives. And we looked at yesterday about how our tongue is the pen of a ready writer and how we can actually write things, according to Proverbs chapter 7, on our heart. If we'll say what God is saying about us, we can actually change the picture on our heart. And if we can change the picture on our heart, then we'll have faith, and then we'll be able to step into the plans and purposes that God has for our lives. I want to share a story out of the book of Numbers, chapter 13 today, that will really illustrate this for us and how important this is. This story is when the children of Israel were called to go take the promised land, and Moses sends in 12 spies. And they go in and basically they see the promised land. They see there's clusters of grapes that are so big that it was going to take two of them to carry them on back in, and there were huge clusters of grapes. They see these great fortified cities. I mean, how good of a deal is that, right? You're going to get a promised land, and then you don't even have to build the cities. The cities are already built. I mean, that's awesome. Um, and so just they see all of how good it is, and they come back. 10 of the spies come back and bring this report about how great, or actually all 12 bring a report about how great the land is. But 10 come in and say, we see giants in the land, so we can't take this land. The people, they're too mighty for us. And then 2 had a positive report. 2 have a positive report, and 10 have a negative report, and they have grasshopper thinking. And that'd be the subtitle. Words paint a picture / grasshopper thinking today. So let's look at this. So I'm going to turn over here to Numbers chapter 13, and we'll look in verse 26. And I think this is really, really going to bless you. It says, "Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Then they told him and said, 'We went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there.'" Anak was a giant. "And the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan." And so they come back and say how great the land is, but then they begin to talk about all the problems. And so before I read the rest of this, let me explain why should maybe resonate with you watching. I can't tell you the number of times I have seen people have an opportunity set before them and they wanted to take the opportunity. It was like a new job, for example. Or maybe they were 18, they were gonna go to college, and it was a great opportunity. And they felt like it was probably what God wanted to do, but then there were problems that came associated with it. There was, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to have to move 3 hours away and not know anybody. Or I am going to go take this new job, but I will make double the money that I'm currently making on my current job, but I'm going to have to learn all these new skills. I'm going to have to learn new things on a computer or something else like that that I don't know, and it's hard. And then what you'll see people do is they'll have the opportunity set before them, but then they'll see the obstacle, and the obstacle represents a giant. Now, I want you to think about this. Make this practical. Don't make this just about people that lived thousands of years ago. Make it about you. It's crazy when you see people who are intelligent people say they can't won't take a job that will pay double the salary because they won't learn a particular skill like learning how to use a computer. I mean, we would criticize the children of Israel for not having faith and getting intimidated by giants. But, there's people that they get intimidated by a computer, or they get intimidated by a particular skill set that thousands of people have, millions of people have in the United States, but then they won't learn a particular skill or whatever else, or maybe go into a new job where they don't know anybody and they're just afraid to be alone. And that fear of being alone, that represents a giant. And then what they do is they have this promised land of double salary set before them, but then they don't take the promised land. And they stay in the job that doesn't pay enough, and they complain and they cry and they ask for God for more money. And then God opens up another job, but then they're going to have to leave their current comfortable situation to go step into something new that has more giants. And so this is something we all have to learn how to do. We've got to learn how to change the picture on the inside, and power of words is one of the keys of learning how to do this. Hopefully that made sense, okay? So anyway, they begin to complain. Then Caleb, verse 30, then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it." That's a faith man. He was well able. He ended up actually taking his land when he was 85 years old. So praise God, it was years and years later. But verse 31, but the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they spied out, saying, "The land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants." Do you really think the land devoured its inhabitants? Just saying. "And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature." So again, when you get negative, you begin to say things that aren't even true. I don't think the land was eating people, number one. And then number two, there may have been people there of great stature, but like Caleb said, you're well able to overcome it. Now, but look at verse 33. This is where I want to get to. "There we saw giants. The descendants of Anak came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight." They saw themselves, these 10 spies, these 10 men saw themselves as grasshoppers, and then they said, "We were like grasshoppers in the giant's sight, and we were in our own sight." And there's a principle we need to learn out of this. There's a couple. Number one, if God has told you to take a promised land, and there are giants there, the reality is it doesn't matter if the giant sees you as a grasshopper. Who cares? If God is with you, you'll defeat a giant as a grasshopper. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter how the giant sees you, but it matters how you see yourself. So it doesn't matter if a giant, or it doesn't matter if an adversary sees me as a grasshopper. What matters is when I see myself as a grasshopper. When I have a picture, when I have an image of a defeat on the inside of me, everybody else could have the picture of defeat on the inside about me around them, and it doesn't matter if I have an image of victory on the inside of me, I'll walk in victory. What other people think doesn't matter. It's what I think on the inside of me that matters. It's how I see myself. Do I see myself like a grasshopper, or do I see myself like a victor? The second part of this that is important is if you do a study of grasshoppers do not have ears. And I just think it's fun. I think it's funny or interesting because where does faith come? Faith comes from hearing. And they actually made a confession about themselves of an animal that did not have the capacity to hear. Grasshoppers pick up sound in other ways, but they don't have ears. They're not able to hear the way that we are. And so they don't have the distinctive ability to hear and can connect with God's voice. And they compared themselves to this animal that doesn't have the ability to hear. Faith comes from hearing God's word. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. And then the Bible also says in Corinthians, it says that we walk by faith and not by sight. What do grasshoppers, while they don't have ears, what do? They actually have magnified sight. They have a greater capacity to see than they do a capacity to hear. And what we want to learn, if we're going to walk by faith, is we have to learn to not walk by what we see, but by what we hear. We need to learn to hear what God is saying. And if we'll say what God is saying, then we'll see what God sees, and that's a good thing to see. But we don't need to see the reality of the world around us in the sense of defeat, depression, all the crazy that's happening in the world. That cannot be our focus, because if that becomes our focus, that will actually get on the inside of us. Okay? Now, I'm not saying we also go live in a monastery and don't live in the world. We do live in it, but we still live in it from a perspective of heavenly places living toward earth, not living in a place of the earth with all the negativity and defeat and discouragement and fear, and then go running to God for help all the time. Let's live in a position of close to God where I'm seeing what He's saying, and I'm saying what He's seeing, and I'm putting my focus there, and I'm speaking words of faith over myself, so I have a heart that is full of faith. And when I do that, then I'm able to take my promised land. And so I hope that's encouraged you today, because God has a promised land for you to take. But a big part of that is by the words that you say. You say what God says. It does not matter what you see in the natural. You don't walk by that. You walk by what God says, and God's word is final, and He watches over His word to perform it. So I hope that has encouraged you today. Come back tomorrow. We'll finish the series out, and I think it'll really bless you. And again, if you're new here, subscribe to our channel. We'll bring you fresh content every day, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock, and just stuff like this that'll really encourage you and strengthen you and help you walk in faith. So God bless you. We love you, and we'll see you soon.